We often hear AI discussed as a kind of digital brain, one that thinks a lot like we do, only with access to endless information and an ability to do things at speed. A sort of machine version of human reasoning that simulates our cognition without emotions, feelings of fatigue, or a tendency to get distracted. But the more time I spend using and learning about AI, and the more I've reflected on the question of what intelligence actually is, the clearer something has become. AI doesn't really think like us at all. It doesn't see the world the way we do or interpret things like us. It doesn't even experience reality as humans do. It has its own perceptual language, one that's invisible to us but exceptionally powerful. And I think understanding this difference is essential for anyone wanting to wrap their head around what AI is and what it will become in the future. Because AI sees reality in shapes, not squares and triangles, but complex topological landscapes that enable it to reach conclusions and to make predictions. AI doesn't just process data, it sees the shape of information, the topology, and then uses those shapes to observe patterns and provide insights that are completely outside of the range of human perception. And once you realize this, the implications of this technology and the revolution that we're all facing becomes clear. Human perception is brilliant for what it evolved for. It helps us to avoid danger, find opportunities, and navigate social complexity. It gives us a basic understanding of the world that works for survival, but in the complex mega society that we've created, its scope is undeniably limited. That's because we see the world one frame at a time, one event at a time, and one detail at a time. We focus on the leaf, not the forest, and the moment, not the trend. We get bogged down in isolated facts, not the wider structure that gives those facts broader meaning. This happened, then that happened, this caused this, that means that, and so on. Now that's a very tidy, narrative-friendly way of experiencing reality, but unfortunately, reality is anything but tidy. Reality is a web of interlocking forces, slow-moving processes, hidden patterns, and invisible connections that no single brain can ever hope to make sense of. So we humans do what we've always done. We simplify things so that they can fit within our limited biological bandwidth. AI is different because it doesn't need to do this. It has the ability to assess reality at scale. And while on the surface that may not appear to be that significant, from an intelligence perspective, it changes absolutely everything. When an AI model processes information, it doesn't see text or images like we do. It sees relationships and differences. It sees gradients and clusters, distances and frequencies, pressure points and flows. Information becomes an environment that it can view and interpret. This is abstract to us because our brains don't have the capability to view big data, but AI has developed to do just that. It sees terrains of peaks and valleys, currents moving through a vast sea of data, storm fronts forming where patterns collide, rivers of behavior that carve their way through a population, and mountains of influence rising and falling over time. This is AI's native language, its intelligence expressed as geometry. AI looks at information the way that a meteorologist reads the atmosphere. It sees the forces and the tensions, the drifts and the direction of travel. It can observe a storm of data forming long before a human can even notice a cloud in the sky. Where we see individual events, AI sees the shape that those events create, and the shape of all that becomes the basis for its reasoning. This is why AI is able to make predictions with such accuracy, not because it's calculating faster than we can, but because it's perceiving reality in a completely different way. One that doesn't require the world to be broken into digestible chunks or relatable stories, but one that operates at a base level of informational structure. Once you understand that AI assesses the world through shape rather than sequence, everything starts to click. It explains why AI is so good at forecasting things like weather patterns, financial markets, traffic flow, and disease outbreaks. These are not linear problems, and they don't fully reveal themselves through spreadsheets or narratives, human tools that we've traditionally used to try and decode complexity. They're topological. They're about how things flow, interact, converge, and diverge. Humans, even teams of very intelligent humans, struggle with this because we can only hold a few variables in our heads at once. AI can hold millions, billions, or even trillions of data points that form an observable structure that it can see. And unlike us, it doesn't get overwhelmed by complexity. Instead, it absorbs it like a sponge absorbs water. To AI, complexity is, weirdly, clarity. That's the real power of how it interprets reality. It's a form of perception that emerges only when you have unlimited bandwidth, no emotional interference, no narrative bias, no need for the world to be simple, and no limitations on how much information you can hold. AI's worldview is not limited then by the human story. It's shaped by the mathematics of reality itself, by patterns, by structures, and by the geometry of cause and effect. This is intelligence beyond the human framework, and it's gearing up to be a major force in how the world will be understood and governed in the future. If AI sees the world in shapes rather than stories, then the systems we build with AI will reflect that perspective. Decision-making will shift from rigid categories to become more fluid, recognizing the larger forces at play. Forecasting becomes more accurate, resource allocation becomes more dynamic, and planning becomes more adaptive. Because instead of reacting to individual events, AI can respond to the shape of the system as a whole. This changes how we can tackle climate change, urban planning, global health, supply chains, economics, and even human behavior. It's a future where patterns will guide us towards decisions we would never have been able to reach without AI assistance. Some of it will seem counterintuitive, others will feel unlikely to result in our intended outcomes. That's because they will be driven by a technology that can navigate the landscape of information in ways that humans never can. We're stepping into a world where intelligence is no longer limited by our perception of reality, and that's something that I find fascinating and unsettling in equal measure, because it means the very nature of thinking is beginning to shift, and the mechanisms that we use to make sense of our world are starting to be replaced. Human intelligence is no longer the sole lens through which the world can be interpreted. We now have a second lens, one that sees the world in ways we can't. Importantly, this approach to decoding reality isn't an additional ability that artificial intelligence has. It's the very foundation of how it experiences everything. And understanding that is the first step towards understanding the future that we're heading towards, running towards. This is just the first of 4 videos in which I discuss AI's relationship with information. In the next part, we'll explore things further. Because if AI has its own perceptual language, then the next question is, where does it get the raw material for that perception? Where does its view of the world come from? And what role do we, humans, play in that process? The answer may surprise you, because it's clear that humanity isn't just building AI. Humanity is its sensory input, its eyes and its ears. We are its window into the world. And once you understand that, the way you view AI and the relationship you have with it shifts forever. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. This video was based on my writing over at layeredfuture.com. If you'd like to explore the full article or browse through other topics, you'll find it all there.